Alrighty everyone, welcome back. It is now March 2nd of 2024, and given that all divisions over at the Walt Disney Company are beginning to fall apart one after the other, not just due to Bob Iger's cost-cutting measures, but also due to the fact that there's been so many box office disasters, one after the other, not just in 2023, but expensive failures on the horizon for 2025. Let's not forget about that. Through massive reshoots, rewrites, and a lot of other arrangements being made by Bob Iger and the rest of the heads over at Disney. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. So, one thing about Bob Iger is that we know that there's a lot of drama happening behind the scenes over at the Walt Disney Company. We know that there's a lot of divisions there that are really going through probably the most difficult time that they have ever faced. And like I said before, this is not just limited to Marvel Studios and Lucasfilm. It's also, of course, wreaking havoc on others like Walt Disney Animation Studios, as well as Pixar. But focusing on the whole Disney president firing situation and what's been going on with that, things are beginning to get ugly between Sean Bailey and Bob Iger. Let's get into all of this, shall we? Now, specifically, we know that Bob Iger has been making one bad call after the other. I think that we could all pretty much agree with each other on that, right? Given that Bob Iger really has no clue on how to operate a company and really lacks any kind of a leadership skill at that, and lies to the shareholders, to the customers, and really puts up all these false promises like quieting down the noise, quote unquote. And then we all saw the leaked video where he compromised all of that. He basically was very hypocritical in that video, supporting the agenda. However, what's interesting about all of this is that with all divisions over at Disney showing no signs of a resolution after going into a downward spiral, one major development has much to do with the whole firing situation of the Disney president who handles all the live-action material. As it turns out, in a crucial update to this situation, Sean Bailey, who was recently fired and removed as a Disney president by CEO Bob Iger for handling the live-action movies for the Walt Disney Company, fell into heated arguments to head back into negotiations, with Bob Iger using Bailey as a scapegoat for all the box office failures. Not only is Bailey frustrated with this, but he was also angered toward Bob Iger's extreme push for DEI into the upcoming Marvel and Star Wars related material, along with Disney live-action remakes. The main reasoning of why Sean Bailey is seemingly going to war with those like Bob Iger and other executives is that he was initially promised to be able to produce the new Pirates of the Caribbean reboot, Tron 3, and a new Disney live-action remake, which is reportedly Sword in the Stone. This was the set deal, even after he was forced to leave this segment of Disney and after getting fired, and was later taken off from being able to produce both Pirates and another Disney live-action remake, Sword in the Stone, which is reportedly, of course, going to have a massive change-up. As of now, Bailey has been removed from those two projects and is now only allowed to work on Tron 3, but it gets worse. After his firing as a producer and as a president, however, in the trouble of this situation is that Bailey is already beginning to fight Bob Iger and the rest of the board, giving them warnings about their overusage of agendas and their push for DEI now being a real deal in Tron 3, aka Tron Ares. Bailey being able to produce Tron 3 was Disney's final offer to transition from using Bailey and bringing in David Greenbaum full circle eventually. The recent emergency meeting that took place between those like the heads of Disney and Bailey is that Sean is already being forced to up the ante of DEI in Tron 3, and it's something he already is having serious issues with and questioning Bob Iger's creative ability and business decisions. After Bailey was removed from practically all live-action Disney material, with Greenbaum now taking over, who reportedly, by the way, falls more in line with Disney's push for their agenda, what's even more shocking is that Bailey is already warning Disney that he is now willing to step down from Tron 3, aka Tron Ares, which would in turn create a production shakeup. As a producer, if Bob Iger keeps things up, since he doesn't want to be responsible for Iger's decisions anymore that he was already blamed for. The firing of Bailey, of course, by Bob Iger and the executives was made in a way to make Bailey appear as if he was stepping down or just removing himself from the equation. However, this was nothing more than a strategy by Bob Iger to create less noise and drama from the Hollywood trades and media outlets out there. Now guys, let me stop here for one moment. Now, I don't know about you, but this obviously is a fine example of Bob Iger really trying to latch on to the scapegoat technique. That's the only reason why I believe he's keeping Tron 3 attached to Sean Bailey, is that if it fails, which it most likely will if it's going to have all that agenda-driven nonsense in it, he can point the finger at Bailey and said, yeah, it was his fault. We gave him this last opportunity after even he was removed from handling all the live-action material, and that's that. That's basically what Bob Iger wants to do. It's clear as day. You can see it a mile away. It's exactly what he just did, by the way, with all of the 2023 box office failures. You know, literally pointing the finger at Sean Bailey. So again, I mean, this is another Iger failure. The fact that, yes, they initially had him on for producing 3 major movies, even after he got fired/removed. It was some kind of a deal, per se, where he was able to not necessarily run things in the grand scheme of the Walt Disney live-action material, but would be able to still produce at least 3 movies before leaving. And that was all pretty much, you know, tarnished down to 1. And even the 1, which being, of course, Tron 3, is already going through a lot of shakeups as we speak. So specifically on top of this, alright, this is where it gets worse, is that this is already creating a massive shakeup behind the scenes, since now David Greenbaum is already calling most of the shots on the direction of where the live-action material will go for 2025, 26, and beyond, and how it's all going to be handled. Bailey is also reportedly preparing to make a statement about his creative differences with the Walt Disney Company, of course, and specifically Bob Iger. At that will shed new truths on how Disney operates. So he wants to shed new truths on Bob Iger and how he operates the Disney Company and how things have really been going downhill for the past number of years. And again, it's shady of Disney to really kind of make it seem like Bailey is, you know, going through this little segue of just removing himself from the equation. That's not the case. He was put to the wayside. He was given the boot. He was fired/removed from acting as president of all the live-action content for Disney. Again, I mean, I think that this is another big example that 2024, though it may be more of a barren year, an empty year for releases, it's going to be a very big year when it comes to the corporate ladder shakeups. And this is just the beginning. We all saw this happening from a mile away, ever since, of course, some of the board members were beginning to disagree with each other. And though the ones that were disagreeing with Bob Iger were on the lower end, it is beginning to get more serious now. So overall, you know, I think that Sean Bailey, at the end of the day, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with his role in Tron Ares. And we already got that first look just a couple of days ago, that first image of Tron 3, and sure, it's going to look cool. That's just an image though, alright? So overall, I would like to hear what you all have to say about this entire scenario below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.